In today's interconnected world, our potential for open-mindedness has never been greater. Yet, it feels like divisions among us are growing. Instead of celebrating our differences, we tend to get stuck in polarizing opinions. So, how do we bridge this gap? Amidst our search for understanding and unity, we're drawn to stories that light the path forward. So today, I will share with you the story of Ben Barres. Ben was a distinguished neuroscientist and Stanford professor, well known for his work in glial biology. Following his transition from Barbara to Ben in 1997, he became a vocal advocate for minorities in science by speaking out against discrimination and harassment. As we say in Maltese, spukkat il-boy. He created an environment for young scientists to thrive, fostering a legacy of mentorship, including some notable names such as Beth Stevens, Nicola Allen, and Andrew Huberman. Exactly, that Andrew Huberman. And before his passing in 2017, he shared his journey in his autobiography, from which today I will highlight 10 life lessons which inspired me, and hopefully they'll inspire you as well. So let's go, the logic implementation. So when you think of a feminist, what comes to mind? Unfortunately, many would think of something like this. For sure, that's not what an actual feminist looks like, because a feminist has many faces, one of whom is Ben. Ben was not just a feminist, however also an advocate for diversity, believing that the world of science would benefit a lot from giving all people an equal chance at succeeding, as they would bring valuable different perspectives to the table. Ben experienced many episodes of sexism, such as when Barbara was accused of having the boyfriend solve a really complex mathematical equation for her. Another time, Barbara was passed up for a man for a particular fellowship, even though Barbara was head and shoulders better qualified. So you can only imagine how enraged and compelled he was when the Harvard University president suggested that an innate inability in women is the root cause for not succeeding in science. This instance instigated him to write a commentary in Nature Research Journal, arguing against the statement by providing evidence from research articles and also epidemiological statistics. What I admire about him is that he always engaged in such discussions and debates by focusing on facts rather than arguing from a place of pure emotion. To be honest, I find it quite unusual, because such topics are normally sensationalized and turned into viral clips. That whatever side you're on, you become enraged and you'll double down on your stance. Ben's approach to advocacy emphasizes the use of one's platform for positive change. He understood that when one speaks to the public, one amplifies whatever one is putting out. So if one speaks from a place of hate, hate will be amplified. On the other hand, if one speaks from a place of love and reason, then these attributes will be amplified. The bias paradox. Ben Barres gave a great seminar today, but then his work is much better than his sister's. Imagine hearing this after you gave a talk, and both of the people mentioned are you, because you just had a sex change. So such a comment brings up an obvious question. Is work from women automatically considered inferior, even though it is of the same quality? And the answer is a resounding yes. Ben refers to this in his book and also in this article. And in both instances, he refers to the study, where it was shown that men are automatically considered more competent than women, even though they had equal productivity. Sad, right? So why am I bringing this up? And no, it's not to throw a pity party to all the women around you, but to point out that even though evidence points to inequality, we still believe that we live in a meritocracy. As Ben writes, both men and women often deny gender-based bias. We all have a strong desire to believe that the world is fair. Ben's observation in bias denial highlights the pervasive nature of unconscious bias in our society. And I find that this insight prompts reflection from our side on our perception of situations around us. This just somehow teaches me that even though I don't see it, doesn't mean that there's nothing to see. The final equation. As a professor, Ben had many responsibilities, which often left little room to do science. However, in the book he mentions that cancer has shed light on identifying the importance of prioritizing tasks that bring joy and fulfillment. As he said, surprisingly, cancer has had an upside. It allowed me to shed many time-consuming activities, such as being the department chair, being on endless committees and editorial boards, grant writing, teaching, and traveling to meetings. It suddenly became easy to say no to all of these things without guilt so that I could focus on the things I really wanted to accomplish before my time runs out. To me, this paragraph prompts reflection from our side, because must we have that knocking at our doors to prioritize the activities we truly believe are important to us? Somehow, we often go through our lives acting on the shoulds around us, but it is good to take a page from Ben's book and remind ourselves of our own mortality by asking ourselves the question, is this really what I believe will bring the most value to my life? Or is it just something that I believe that I should do? Put it in other words, if I only had 1 year to live, would I actually be doing this or not? This took me a long time to realize, but we are always going to be busy. However, what will make a difference is if we are busy with the things that matter most to us. The atomic exacerbation. Where is your decency? Was a one line of a long email in 2016 from Ben to the director of the NIH. In this period, Ben was advocating that conferences would have a sexual harassment policy to protect female trainees during such events. At this time, sexual harassment was quite endemic in academic conferences. To give a mental picture, he recalls hearing a professor boasting that he batted 200 trainees in such conferences. Another mentioned story is about a female trainee who thought she was discussing science with one of her science heroes, only to be written his hotel room number on her hand at the end of the conversation. I find that Ben's advocacy for sexual harassment policies demonstrated the power of incremental actions in effective change. His simple request to make every attendee in a conference agree to a sexual harassment policy sparked a movement towards greater inclusivity and safety in academic settings. Basically, so that women like me would not have such stories to share. So, thanks a lot, Ben. Saturation point. Often we think that the more the better, more so for us scientists. We are always on the hunt for the next experiment, for the next grant, for the next paper. However, this mentality can leave us burnt out, as it might give us the impression that no matter how much we work, it will never be enough. So why do anything to begin with? So while the scientific community often glorifies quantity, Ben emphasized the impact of individual breakthroughs over a multitude of publications. One good paper is more than plenty for a PhD or postdoc. The yardstick fallacy. And while we're on this note, never compare yourself with the achievements of your advisor in their PhD or postdoc. I know we should not compare ourselves to others. However, I know that we do. Well, at least for publications. In his postdoc, Ben published 7 first author research articles in Cell, Nature, and other journals. I know, he was a research machine, but in his own words, he recognized that today a paper in one of these journals usually contains about 7 times more data than they did 30 years ago. While in no way this is said to diminish Ben's publication track record, still impressive. This points to the fact that different times have different rules, and even different fields in the same period of time have different rules. So just be aware of this and try not to set your sights on something which might be unrealistic after all. The serendipity effect. Imagine throwing the dice, and depending on the outcome, the trajectory of your career is decided. Same is true when prospective PhD students select their advisor. As Ben says, all of us selected our graduate mentors amateurishly, almost randomly, and certainly not wisely. Through sheer dumb luck, I happened to pick a wonderful mentor. As at this point in the academic career, it is very difficult to choose a good advisor, because after all, based on what experience? Luckily, Ben wrote a whole article on how to choose an advisor, if you want to check it out. However, I would also add that one's academic experience is also determined by factors which usually you cannot foresee. So personally, I think that all of this should serve as a reminder to show humility in the face of success or failure, whether facing challenges or achieving milestones. Recognizing the influence of sheer luck brings about a grounded perspective. The imposter anomaly. As I walked home that night, the soul-crushing thought occurred to me for the first time in my life that perhaps I was not cut out to be a scientist. Perhaps I was not good enough. We are all familiar with the negative feeling that our failures are a reflection that we are not adequate for the job. You probably know it by the name of the imposter syndrome. Unfortunately, this is usually caused by a romanticized view of life and what we think should be. It is quite human to feel this way. Imagine if even Ben Barres had these thoughts and he was a scientist scientific machine. Who are we, right? But anyway, if Ben gave in to his self-doubt at this point in time, then he would not have gone to publish 7 papers in his postdoc and have started a really successful lab. Somehow I find that his life story serves as a reminder the importance of self-compassion and resilience. The innovation impulse. You know that feeling when you start something new and somehow everything and everyone around you start to offer resistance? Well, Ben highlights this quite nicely in that even though his newly formed lab had published in the famous research journal Science, showing the importance of glia in the brain, he still had issues getting funded as the grant reviewers had their doubts on the relevance of his science. Later on he reflected on this period and he said, "But now, after a long career, I can look back on it with more detachment and see that this may be the way it always is when young scientists start with new ideas, often seeing the same old things in different ways. It is not personal, but just the usual resistance that new ideas are met." And here, I believe that Ben was onto something, on some natural principle. Different people call it different names, but in the end, whenever one tries to change the status quo in whatever field or sector you're in, you will always encounter resistance. Resistance from the outside, as we've seen from Ben's story, but sometimes also resistance within yourself. So if you have a great idea that goes against the flow, as Cypher says in The Matrix,
buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
The service hypothesis. Throughout the book, Ben mentions that he never had the desire to have his own children. However, even though he never had any biological children, I feel that in reality he had plenty, as he left behind him a legacy of mentees who revere him to this day. He instilled in them his love for science, especially in glia. And in fact, the glial biology field is populated by his ex-trainees, who now occupy prominent position. I have to say, it would not be a glial conference if Ben's name is not mentioned. And for this reason, his legacy and inspiration will continue to live on for many years to come. So, how can one build a legacy as solidly as Ben's? Well, I believe that the answer lies in one sentence of his. Leadership is about going out of your comfort zone to help others. And it seems that being of service to others and investing in their growth and success is the key to truly influence the people around you. With this, I want to thank Ben for making such a dent in many people's lives, even to the ones that he never met, such as me. If you want to hear more from Ben himself, I would suggest this video, which is a seminar that he once gave about his favorite glia. And with this, thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye bye!